Okay, hello everybody. We should be on. Let's get a couple of things on here real quick before I start the review. I'm still very much so new to this, so we're attempting to. Um, there we go. That's what I was looking for. There we go. That's exactly what I was looking for. There's one more little thing. It just helps me with this stream. Let's move this up. And before we start talking about Smackdown, one final thing. There we go. That's exactly what I want. Let's leave this here. I kind of need that there. Okay. Just a little technical stuff. Okay, there we go. No, I don't like that there. Okay. Perfect. Okay, we're here. Obviously, it's been upgraded, my little setup so far. Got a little bit of an upgrade. So, let me pull up one little thing. Still, this all very much so new to me, right? But we're here to talk about Smackdown, right? This Smackdown was, I will say this, not the best Smackdown, but we had some good stuff. There's Cody. Move my head. Cody in the background. But yeah, let's talk about Smackdown. Let me pull up my notes here, and we gotta talk about, of course, you talk about the Royal Rumble, right? Because that's what the whole thing, that's what this whole show is. But there's no real sense of, at least for SmackDown side, there wasn't anything that really excited me except for a few things. And first off, of course, they're talking about the Royal Rumble, and first segment, Joe Tessitore, I'm giving Kevin Owens the ability to go out there and to speak. I want him to tell his side of the story, right? Cool. So he goes and he does that, right? Hold up. You know what I realized? I realized I didn't do something. No wonder I'm getting killed in the ratings. Real quick. There we go. Let's do this real quick. I need a habit of putting in tags. I know, not the most exciting thing to see me do, but it's what we're doing nonetheless. I don't think anyone can see me without tags. See, I used to know SmackDown as Thursday Night Smackdown. Thursday Night Smackdown back in the day. How's everyone doing today? Well, yeah, Thursday Night Smackdown back in the day. Let's finish these tags before anything else. I know, bad look. It's got a bad look, but I'm very much so new to this. So I'm trying to figure it all out. I realize there's one thing that's one thing that I did not do. Because I want to talk about Smackdown. And I'll do this real quick. Okay. Hopefully that should We should do something. That should do something. I'm in the midst of all this stuff. It's like, man, this streaming stuff. It's, a little bit hard. But at least we upgraded. We got the new camera. No longer using the phone. We've upgraded since then. So yeah, let me continue talking about Friday Night Smackdown. Real quick. Okay. So real quick. Right, so they wanted to give Kevin Owens the opportunity, right, to go out there and to, say his mind, because apparently last week he didn't get the opportunity to do that. So they allowed Joe Tessitore to do that, and Kevin Owens comes out. Of course, he's all smug, right? He's all, angry and all that jazz. And he's like, I'm here to give you an opportunity to talk. And of course, he goes out and calls Joe Tessitore this Cody fanboy. He's this big fan, and he's tired of him being disrespected by him and all that. And he says, of course, I'm going to walk out with the WWE Championship. I'm going to be the rightful champion. He tells Joe Tessitore, hey, you can grab that apology and shove it up where the sun don't shine. And he said, there's one more thing that I wanted to do. And he takes his winged eagle belt, and he then starts to walk away. But not before none other than CM Punk and his music hits. And he walks to the ring. And of course, they're all silent. They're all, holy shit type stuff, right? And this is awesome. Right, that. And, of course, Kevin Owens is like, hey, can I help you? Is there something I can help you with? The reason why this whole thing happened is CM Punk, he wanted to go up and issue an apology. As he says, hey, and then he said, hey, somebody said my name, so I think that's more than an invitation for me to come out, right? And they basically tease this potential of CM Punk and Kevin Owens. If Kevin Owens wins the WWE Championship, right? And if CM Punk wins, if two big ifs, then he's like, I would love to have a match with you at WrestleMania at the main event. Right? And Kevin Owens says, he's like, I like the idea. I like the sound of me beating your ass at WrestleMania. Hey, I like the sound of that too. And then Kevin Owens goes up and says, I know how much this means to you. I know how much winning the WWE Championship and being in the main event of WrestleMania means to you. And he said, sorry, ugh. That was rough. But he said, I like the idea of you not having a main event and you growing old and never reaching that goal of main eventing WrestleMania. God damn. That is just rough. And you gotta love Kevin Owens. He really was one to put it out there. And he can sell it. He can sell it really well. And he's like, I love that idea of you never main eventing Mania. And then everybody's been saying this. Oh, I hope you win the Royal Rumble. I hope you win the Royal Rumble. This is the first time anyone said this. Kevin Owens is like, I hope you don't win. Because everybody's been saying it. I hope you win. I hope you win. I hope you win. God. Everybody hopes the other person wins. And CM Punk ends up retorting. He's like, yeah. Because, of course, Kevin Owens mentioned, I main evented WrestleMania. You didn't. And, of course, CM Punk retorts by saying that, well, at least I didn't lose to Logan Paul. That's rough. Well, at least I didn't lose 5 times, 5 title matches at the Royal Rumble. That's also rough. And then he says, well, here's the thing. You take shortcuts, I don't. And then, of course, he invites Kevin Owens, hey, come on. He invites him into the ring to fight. But, of course, nothing happens. Of course, nothing happens between the two. Because nothing was ever going to happen between the two. He just walks off, and he leaves. Walks off, and he leaves. And then with that in the rear view window, right? We then cut to The Miz, right? He's in the back. He's talking to Nick Aldis. And he's talking about, like, oh, I was doing a good thing with DIY, but then they got transferred over. You transferred him over. And that he has no friends on SmackDown. He tried to recruit Andrade and talking, mad smack about Andrade. And they did the whole meme. He's right behind there, isn't he? Like, right behind me, isn't he? And they end up having a match because Nick Aldis is like, oh, okay, you two sort out your problems in a one-on-one match. Okay, cool. For the second time after this, though, Carmelo Hayes ended up taking on Jimmy Uso, right? And before Jimmy comes to the ring, right? He's cutting a promo, talking about, like, all this stuff. But the thing that was interesting to me is the fact that, Shinsuke Nakamura was in the back, and he was watching him. Like, he was watching him and, like, looking at him, and that's what I found the most interesting thing about, like, all of that to me, is Shinsuke just looking at him. Just looking at him. Real quick. Sorry. But yeah, he's just looking at him. And they're, of course, showing the footage last week of how Carmelo Hayes attacked him, leading up to this whole entire thing, right? And straight out immediately, of course, Carmelo gets the cheap shots in. He starts attacking Jimmy, starts chopping Jimmy, and then he headbutts him. And he's selling it like, oh my god, I shouldn't have done that, right? And he's holding his head. And then that's when Jimmy starts coming in. That's when he starts coming in. And Jimmy attempts to do something. He's going to fly to the outside, right? But Carmelo cuts him off, takes his head off with a clothesline. Jimmy, at one point, he's taken to the outside, right? And during this time, he ends up and he lands a perfect senton. While Carmelo, for some reason, they were really promoting this guy, Tyrese Halliburton, right? And apparently he's a basketball player in, like, I don't know. I literally don't watch sports, so I can't tell you what team he was from. But Tyrese Halliburton, that's the guy who came on and they were talking smack. But like I said, Jimmy threw a senton, of course. And after that, Carmelo, he does this thing, right? Carmelo, and by the way, Carmelo, he's just like a freak athlete, right? Like, he does these things, these flips and these moves, and it makes you wonder, how does he do these things? How is it possible that he's able to do them? He's just an athlete unlike any other, right? So they do this thing, and Jimmy does it too. Jimmy, he's also, like, kind of, how do I say it? He's also like one of those athletes that's just like deceptively good. That's the word. Because they do this thing where they go to the top rope, right? And they do a hip toss from the top, and that turns into like a cutter. Hey, how you doing tonight? We're just talking about Smackdown, talking about Carmelo Hayes against Jimmy Uso. Great match. Where did I leave my? There we go. But yeah, so it's just a freak thing that they were able to do that. Jimmy Uso is just great. Carmelo manages to do a flip, but like in that moment, Jimmy ends up catching him and he super kicks him. Super kicks him straight in the face. Of course, after that, they end up doing this thing, right? And he attempts, Carmelo Hayes, he attempts to do a roll up, right? But, what's it called? Jimmy, and he's also trying to cheat. But he holds, he also holds onto the rope. The ref catches him, right? The ref catches him, and during that time, Jimmy ends up rolling himself, Carmelo Hayes, and ends up picking up the victory. So, honestly, there's probably got to be one more of these matches. Honestly, they always have one more of these matches. They always end these trilogies in 3, right? And so, after that, we have a segment where they cut to Chelsea Green, right? She's in the back, and she's wearing this Wonder Woman, right? She's wearing a Wonder Woman robe, right? Cool. It looked cool, especially in her match. She looked cool. She goes up against Michin and says that she's going to beat her and that she's also going to throw 29 other women out and win the Royal Rumble. I don't like, it's just annoying, this adage of I'm going to throw 29 other people out of the Royal Rumble. Hold up. I'm going to move over here so you can see Cody in the background. Because no man or woman has ever thrown 29 other people out of the Royal Rumble. It's not possible. The only person who even attempted something like that was freaking Brock Lesnar, but he ended up getting eliminated. So, and speaking of the Cody right there, right? Cody Rhodes was actually absent from this episode of SmackDown. Very weird. He probably came out in the end in the dark segment, but he just did not show up. I don't know why he didn't show up, but he just did not show up today, which I thought was weird. But regardless, we continue going on, right? Because again, they're going to throw 29 other women. They're not going to throw 29 other women. But yeah, out comes Michin with B-Fab. And of course, they start off and they do some rolls before Chelsea powders out to the ring. At one point, Michin ends up hitting a German suplex to Chelsea. Chelsea goes to the outside in B-Fab's corner. And, as she's trying to get away, that's when she gets hit with a tope suicida by Michin, right? Throws her back into the ring. She's doing relatively well at this point. Before who's on the top rope at this point, she ends up getting thrown off, out into the ringside. They always do so well until they don't. Right? So Chelsea Green then starts working her over, of course, doing her heel stuff. Michin does a suplex followed by a beautiful Hurricane Rana, and she starts getting back into the match. She starts working herself up, right? Hits her with her long back attack, something that she's just started recently, and I'm sure a lot of people are fans of, right? And of course, Chelsea Green kicks out at 2. Michin hits her with her Eat Defeat. But of course, Chelsea rolls out of the ring before B-Fab ends up attacking Piper Niven. Michin chases Chelsea Green, and she's rolling to the outside. She gets back into the ring. She rolls to the outside. All this back and forth, right? And finally, when she does grab her, they go over there to the ring bell area. That's when Chelsea Green grabs the kendo stick and starts whacking Michin with it, ends the match in a disqualification, and as she's hitting her, Michin ends up getting that exact kendo stick and just whacking her over and over again until she powders out to the ring, and they leave it at that. They just leave it at that. Obviously, this is not going to be the end of Michin. They are Michin versus Chelsea Green. Yeah, I love Chelsea Green. A lot of people have been speculating whether or not her husband, Matt Cardona, is going to be in the Royal Rumble this Saturday. Tomorrow, actually. But yeah, after that whole entire segment, they go to the back, right? Because Byron Saxton is interviewing Naomi and Bianca because Naomi had a match against Liv Morgan, right? And they say that there's no heat between the two of them because everybody's been talking about like whether or not like them, you know, being, hey, Matt Cardona. I would love to see Matt Cardona. It's been a while since he's been like a part of WWE. I'd love to see him there. He'd be great. But back to the show, what's it called? Bianca was saying, hey, if I don't win it, then Naomi's going to win it. But either way, either one of us is going to win this, win the Royal Rumble. And they cut to a commercial. And of course, during this time, they add another promo package for Charlotte Flair. She's going to be back and in the Royal Rumble. I don't think she's going to win it, but it's going to be great to see her back. It feels like it's been forever. It's definitely been like at least a couple of years since I've seen Charlotte, man. So it's going to be great to see her back and in action. Of course, she's going to be on Smackdown because that's where Andrade is. Why wouldn't she be there? And they cut to Stephanie, of course, in the crowd. She's waving. She's saying hi and stuff like that. She got a new show. But then Damian Priest comes out, and one of the highlights of this whole entire episode was what came after. He talks about his time on Raw, his ups, his downs, how he's betrayed people, how he's done this, that, and the other. And he's like, that was Raw. This is SmackDown. Of course, I'm entering into the Royal Rumble. And I'm going to throw 29 other superstars out. But in the middle of his promo, he gets interrupted by Jacob Fatu. He gets interrupted. Like, I love Jacob Fatu. And they go to the ring, and he's, of course, with Tama Tonga. Mr. Yeah. No, I did not see I saw one brief thing about Stephanie on Pat's show, and that was the whole Hulk Hogan thing. That was great. I loved, and obviously, and then she said how she loved being a heel. I think everybody who does pro wrestling, right? Obviously, they'd want to be a heel, right? Because heels are great. They get to do what they want. They get to be all badass, you know? But yeah, so Jacob Fatu gets to the ring, right? And he's looking up Damian Priest up and down. He says, hey, I know you. Like, I know you. Hey, we're exactly the same. He's like, we're both from the streets. And they said, hey, here's the thing, though. You're not going to make a name for yourself here because we are the guys that run SmackDown. Solo Sikoa is gone. Ever since that San Diego show, Solo Sikoa has been missing. And now, because he is missing, Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga, they're stepping up and they're saying that they're running SmackDown. But of course, of course, Damian Priest says, I'm not scared of you. I ain't scared of you. You were talking tough. And, he's like, we don't need to be talking. You and me, we don't need to be talking. And then all of a sudden, before... I agree, too. I agree that Jacob, especially coming into... when I talk about his match later, Jacob Fatu continues to impress me. He is just this massive guy, a massive guy who can do the things that he does, right? His Samoan drop is freaking amazing. He is just freaking great, phenomenal. But yeah, so he super kicks Tama Tonga and they get into this whole brawl. But of course, that's when the numbers game, the numbers advantage happens. They start beating up and all that. But when this happens, and Tama Tonga ends up grabbing a steel chair. But before anything is done with it, that is when you hear L.A. Knight. Yeah, his music comes out, and of course, he still has beef with the Bloodline. He still has beef with them, and he's going up there. I love this. It was great because he has the steel chair, right? And Jacob punches it. He punches it out of his hand. And there's just this moment where everything stopped. Time stood still for a moment before, the fight happened. And they're like, hey, why don't Damian Priest and myself team up against you guys? And that was our main event for the night. Oof. I really did like what happened there. I also liked the match itself. But we'll get back into that when we cover the main event. Backstage, we see the Motor City Machine Guns talking to Legado del Fantasma and LDF. Why do they call Priest bisexual? That was such a good meme. I love the bisexual Undertaker meme. But yeah, so Legado del Fantasma says that they need to focus and that they need to win, right? And Santos Escobar, right? They say not to trust Motor City Machine Guns. And, there's dissension already amongst them before this whole entire thing starts. Before the tag match starts, there's already dissension among them. Then, of course, everybody comes out. It's DIY and Pretty Deadly against the Motor City Machine Guns and Legado del Fantasma, right? And, of course, already during this match, Legado del Fantasma and Motor City Machine Guns, they just keep tagging themselves in. They just keep tagging, and they do some flips, and this match is full of action, right? But there is just dissension amongst them. Chris Sabin ends up finding himself on the outside, right? And he's just getting beat. Chris Sabin gets beat up for a long time. It's just poor Chris Sabin. He just can't get out of it. He then starts, get himself up. He's fighting out of it. And Pretty Deadly, he hits Pretty Deadly with a double clothesline, and he manages to tag Angel Garza in. He gets the hot tag. He's doing the flips. He does a Hurricane Rana, and it looks in that Hurricane Rana that Angel Garza did, it did look a little bit botched, but he managed to save it. He managed to save it pretty good, and after that, he just ripped his pants off. He just. After that, I mean, Damian Priest, I think is all right. In terms of star power, he's just okay for me personally. I think there are a lot more people in the roster right now that I think have more star power, but that's just me personally. But yeah, so after this, that Bosch Hurricane Rana takes the pants off Johnny Gargano ends up doing a little sneaky tag. He tags in, right? And he ends up spearing Humberto, who is now called Berto, but he's Humberto Carrillo. Like, he'll always be that to me because that's how I know him as. Chris Sabin tags in Humberto, and during this whole entire time, him and Legado del Fantasma, they start fighting. Like, they just, like, start, like, hey, they start pushing each other because the other one wanted to get him. And during this time, it allows for Tommaso Ciampa to come in and attack Chris Sabin. And Legado del Fantasma ends up leaving. They're just like, bye, we're done with this. And essentially, it is now 2 Motor City Machine Guns against the 4 of all the heels. Chris Sabin, who's who's been beaten so much in this match, right? He ends up managing to take out Pretty Deadly, does a tornado DDT in that kick, that whole spot where he does the tornado DDT and that momentum kicks the other guy to DIY. And during this whole team, okay, I gotta try. I'm literally just like this is all very much so new to me, this streaming thing. So, let me see if I can, let me see if I can do all this. No, not that. I think that's, let's see. Gonna try to fix this real quick if you just bear with me. Not that one video. If I can. Oh, there we go. Let me see something real quick. Tap, no. Mic auxiliary. Okay. Then this one should be good. Okay. Let me know if that's better, because I had to do some stuff. But where I was in this whole thing, right? Yeah, so DIY, right, of course, heels and everything like that. During this whole exchange, Chris Sabin is still getting beat up, right? And Ciampa, he ends up kicking Elton Prince in the face. And he's all like, oh, man, I should not have done that. And because of this, Chris Sabin, he ends up doing like this reverse roll on. Okay, cool. Awesome. I think I figured it out. Okay, cool. Thank you very much for the feedback. But yeah, he ends up rolling Ciampa and gets the 1, 2, 3. I think going into this, I feel as though the heels, if they lose, I could be wrong, but if they lose on like the go home show, usually there's high chances that they could go over and win during the pay-per-view, but we're going to see tomorrow. And another interesting thing happened after this match. It is now Tama Tonga and Jacob Fatu, right? They go and they're in the back, and of course they're angry. They're like, saying stuff. But Tama Tonga, he looks at the tag belts, right? He looks at the tag belts. And then DIY, of course, they look at them. They grab the belts, and they're holding it for all their life. And Tama Tonga just says one thing. Just says, yeah, 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 yeah. And you can hear the crowd in the background. They're also going, yeah, 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 yeah. And honestly, that would be very interesting for me to see. Obviously, Jacob Fatu is going to be this solo star. He's going to be this great guy, right, by himself. But, hey, give him some gold along the way. Tag team titles would be perfect for it. DIY is not going to hold them for, like, a long period of time. And although, they are technically heels, people, like, they cheer. They cheer for frickin' Tama Tonga, and they cheer for Jacob Fatu. Jacob Fatu nearly killed Braun Strowman, right? He nearly killed him, and they were cheering. So it would be an interesting thing to do. But DIY, they end up going. Oh, thank you so much. I've been watching pro wrestling since, I want to say, 2003. So over 20 plus years now. The first wrestler that I ever saw on my screen was Triple H, like on a random VHS that a family member of mine had. Saw Triple H, and then after that, probably like a few weeks or so, that's when my sister runs into the room talking about, oh, WWF is on TV. And then I go back, I go run into the room, and I see none other than John Cena on screen, because the tape that I was watching was from like, who knows, like 90s, 2000s. But like, here is now John Cena. The rest is history. The rest is literally history. But yeah, so DIY, Pretty Deadly, they get into this heated exchange, and originally Pretty Deadly was supposed to be there to help DIY for the the whole tag team match that they had going on. But after this whole debacle where Ciampa kicks one of them in the face, he's like, you know what? For the Royal Rumble, you guys are on your own. You guys are on your own. So now it seems to be an even playing field for the Royal Rumble coming up during their tag match. It's gonna be a banger. It's gonna be a banger. And now we get to Naomi against Liv Morgan. Liv Morgan, she's all right. She's all right, but she's not having the run that she used to have. I don't think she's winning the Royal Rumble. But of course, both of them start off, and of course Naomi, she gotta get her shine. She gotta get her shine on, because you can't do nothing. You can't do nothing without no shine. She ends up dodging. They do this spot where they do kicks, right? Dodges two of them, and then she ends up faking her out, and then kicks her along in the face before doing some splits. Does Naomi? Raquel, of course, she goes in. She causes the distraction, and this is what allows Liv to get her advantage, right? And the whole entire time I'm thinking, Raquel is there and she, caused this whole entire thing. Why didn't Bianca do anything? Like, Bianca's on the other side of the ring. She's not doing anything, So Bianca just stays there. But because of this whole entire thing, now Liv has the upper hand in this match, right? And obviously, and what I was thinking? They have a little bit of, like, they don't really have chemistry. Liv Morgan and Naomi. That's just kind of the feeling that I got. There were some botchy spots like that I noticed. And look, I know we're in the era of like kayfabe is dead and whatnot. Like, we know, right? But like, there's some times where I could like literally see them calling spots, and when I see that, it just kind of takes me out of it, because I know, like, I just like, I like the idea of, because people can hide it really well. Oh, wow. Wow, you've been watching for a while. Yeah, it's funny because now that WWE has been like blowing up these past couple of years, I find, and my brother and my sister, they, were never really into it. They just knew that was my thing, that I liked wrestling. But because of the storylines and everything like that, I've managed to get them into it, and to the point where now all of us are watching. Tomorrow we're all going to watch the Rumble. So it's going to be great. And I'm very grateful, that I'm able to, like, have them involved with it. But back to this match. And that's awesome. You've been watching for this long. I think that people just don't get it. Like, if they don't get it, like, they kind of like trash it. But it's like, it's kind of just like the best thing in the world. Like, for me personally, I love this. Like, I love watching it, and I don't think there'll ever come a point where I don't watch it. But yeah, so aside from the botchy spots and them calling the match, Liv Morgan ends up doing her, of course, Three Amigos, because of course Dom does it, so now she has to do it. Finally, Naomi starts getting back into it. She starts finding her second win. She ends up slapping Liv's ass. That I did notice that. I did notice that, by the way. Smackdown, I see you. She ends up doing a top rope cross body, and she does a hair pull, right? Then Liv, she does a CM Punk knee. You know that knee. She goes up, boom, boom, across the face. Then a lung blower, or as some of you might know it, the code breaker from the second rope. Naomi ends up hitting Liv with a rear view, and of course Raquel, she gets involved, but finally for some reason that's when frickin' Bianca's like, now it's my turn to get involved, so she ends up pulling her down, but during that whole entire distraction, right, Naomi is supposed to hit a split moon crossbody. She does it, but Liv moves out at the last second. Liv attempts to do a pin, but Naomi reverses it and then ends up picking the win herself. And of course, after that, they can't allow for, the baby faces to get a win, to get a good win. So they start beating them down. They start beating them over and over and over again. And despite the fact that they lost the match, Raquel and Liv Morgan stand tall. They stand tall. Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's just emotion for me, right? Emotion. That's like some of the best moments in pro wrestling are just emotional ones. They make, like, I actually trained to be a pro wrestler a long time ago, but it didn't happen. But my coach always told me, he's like, you never forget how something makes you feel. And that's the thing about pro wrestling, is it's how it makes me feel. That's why I've stood with it for so long. And you never forget that. Also, because they did this whole draft window thing, this whole draft window business, because of that, the Wyatts were moved over, right, to SmackDown, but we have not seen them. We have not seen them. And next comes out The Miz for his match against Andrade, right? And for some reason, and Miz has been updating his repertoire of moves, because he did a flying head scissors, and then he does that, that big ball thing that he does where he goes like this, where he walks and he has his hands like this. Like, I don't know why he decided to do it today, but he did it for some reason. And Andrade, I can't say this enough about Andrade. He is just literally a freak of an athlete. The dude's amazing. He somersaults perfectly onto the Miz. He does this thing, right, where he goes over the top ropes, right, and he's like standing there, right, like basically in a handstand. He controls his body so well that he grabs onto Miz with his legs and does a head scissors. Freaking amazing. So he sends Miz to the corner, shoots him up, and he makes him land crotch first onto the ropes. And just like that, Miz is taking control of the match. And of course, he does his famous it kicks. Right? Always makes me think of Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson. Because, obviously, right? And Andrade chops the hell out of him, dude. Like, Like, he chops him and it hurts. You just hear it. And now Andrade, who's been being worked over this whole time, finally, he goes up and he's working him over, right? He's working the Miz. He gets him in the corner. He does the double knees to his face. And Andrade attempts to go to the top of the rope. And both of them are fighting at this point. They're going bum, 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 right? And that's when, out of nowhere, that Spanish fly that freaking Andrade does so beautifully was done. Beautiful Spanish fly from the top rope. Nearly gets him. No, I mean like I've gone back and I've seen like tapes of and um I had a family member. He used to work at a bookstore, right? And they all the time would get people who taped, right? Um, like literally, like on a VHS tape, they would tape these old episodes of Raw and SmackDown as well. So I didn't like for a while. I didn't have internet or cable or stuff like that, so I didn't really know like that type of stuff, right? That old WWE stuff. But it was through these tapes I was able to see like a large chunk of the Attitude Era, and they also had like the pay-per-views as well. All that great stuff. So I definitely do know the Ministry of Darkness, um, and I like I've had some people be like that they don't like the Wyatt Six and stuff like that, and for me personally, I'm like just give it time, just give it time because they write it off right away. I think a lot of people they just write this stuff off right away, and it's like just give it some time, give it some time. Um, and then maybe it can be something, right? So finishing off this match, they had some near falls towards the end, and Andrade hits him with this his finisher, which is this spinning reverse elbow, and it's hit so beautifully, and it's impact, right? I don't know what he had in his mouth, but he had something in his mouth. It went flying out, and that was the end for the Miz. That was the end for the Miz. Yeah, like I saw a lot of the Attitude Era, and I know there's like stuff on Peacock, and they have every single episode, but I still have those tapes to this day. Like I have a lot of like pro wrestling tapes from like back in those days, um, and that's like it's through those tapes that I basically like that's how I knew Stone Cold. Like I love Stone Cold. Like he's through those tapes. Like I was like this dude. He's my favorite. He's my goat. Like and to this day, like he's the greatest of all time to me personally. Um, but Damian Priest finds himself in the back, right? And that's when Legado del Fantasma, of course, they come up to him and they want to recruit him, but Damian Priest says no. He says no. He's like, you and me, we aren't friends. And then he's like, okay, I'm watching you. And then they leave. And that's when we see none other than R-Truth. You gotta love the guy. And he's like, dude, what are you doing here on Raw? Even though it's SmackDown, he's like, what are you doing on Raw? And it's just great. How can you hate R-Truth, right? And then LA Knight then comes up, and he's all like, we're teaming up tonight, you and me, against those Tongans, right? But I want you to know, once the Royal Rumble comes up, once it's you and me out there, we don't know each other. We're teaming up this one night. This one night we're going to team up. But once we're at the Royal Rumble, every man for himself. And that's where it is. That's where there is. Oh, I didn't know they cut out a lot of stuff. Yeah, no, I definitely still have them. I even still have a couple of VHSs, so I'll definitely hold on to them. I even got sorry, my cat. Tubby, what are you doing? You're interrupting the stream. You're interrupting the stream, little man. You're interrupting the stream. Yeah. Back to what we're doing, right? And they have this interview, right? They cut to Tiffany Stratton. Tiffany Stratton. I love Tiffany Stratton. She's great. She's amazing. She's everything that Liv is not. Like, Liv to me is just a boring pro wrestler. She is, but Tiffany, she is amazing. She's great. I love Tiffany. She runs into Selena Vega, who's like, I'm going to win the Royal Rumble, and I'm going to challenge you to the, what's it called, to the title, and it's just like, oh my god, everybody's declaring, and everybody thinks they're gonna win, right? They do this interview, right, with Tiffany Stratton, and she says it doesn't matter who wins. It doesn't matter who wins the Royal Rumble. She's still going to be champion. She's still going to be #1. And she's interrupted. And by none other than Candice LeRae, which I thought was very interesting because Candice LeRae, they haven't given really much time to as a solo person. So it was very, like, I would love to see her do something. There are a lot of people and a lot of wrestlers that they have that they just don't really do anything with. So I always like that. Like, Pretty Deadly, right? They're Aussies, right? And they've been on the main roster for, like, a year or so. But, like, they don't really do anything with them. So now they're finally doing something with them. I want to see them wrestle. I want to see them do stuff. So that's what I like about Candice LeRae. She's coming out there, and she's standing up for her best friend Nia Jax, because of course Tiffany was the one who cashed in on Nia, right? And she said that she's jealous. She's jealous because Nia Jax chose her to be her best friend, her tag team partner, and not Tiffany. And they start getting into this whole thing when all of a sudden Nia Jax comes out. She comes out and accidentally, like, knocks Candice LeRae out. But despite that one tiny little issue, Nia ended up beating up Tiffany Stratton, ends up, hits her with a spine buster and a headbutt, and then just hits the Annihilator on her. Just completely flattening out Tiffany Stratton, and there's like wondering of whether, is there going to be dissension between Candice LeRae? That's a goated comment, also from her. Hey, that's a goated comment. I didn't even think about it like that, but you're right. Yeah. Tubby, what are you doing? Hey, don't make me kick you out. My cat's over here causing trouble. Hey, what are you doing? Don't make me kick you out. But yeah, great. That's a goated comment. And suddenly with that, we were at the main event of the show, right? Damian Priest and LA Knight against the Tongans, right? Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga. Man, like Jacob Fatu, like I said earlier in this stream, he is someone who is poised to be a star. And one of the things that and they do it in New Japan as well, they always have these tag team matches, right? I don't like tag team matches are fine, right? But I don't like I would rather see a singles match between some of these people, and the two people I want to see a singles match with is Damian Priest and Jacob Fatu. Like, that's the whole entire thing that this tag team match gave me. It's like, man, I want to see them go at it in like a freaking like Extreme Rules match or a Last Man Standing match, because that would literally be a banger, like, and of course, like, just brutal is what I'm looking for. And of course, during the match, Damian Priest and LA Knight, they start attacking the Tongans, and they double kick Jacob Fatu, and the whole entire thing, Damian Priest is just staring at Jacob Fatu, just because they're teasing this, right? I would love to see a one-on-one. That's the main takeaway from this that I got. Beautiful match, though. Jacob Fatu, man, he is great. LA Knight was also great, but of course he was getting worked on a majority of this match, just getting beaten over and over and over again until Damian and what's it called? Before Damian get tagged in, they attempt to do that hip attack, right? That hip attack that Jacob Fatu had used, because he used it earlier, and that's what annihilated Braun Strowman. And they attempted to use that on what's it called? They attempted to use that on LA Knight, but he got out of the way, and Damian Priest, it tags Damian Priest with a hot tag, ends up hitting the South of Heaven after being initially countered at first to pick up the win. And of course, baby faces win. Baby faces win. Here comes the heels. Boom, boom, boom. And of course, they go off the air with Jacob Fatu hitting Damian Priest with a Samoan drop and a moonsault to stand on top, ending this episode of Smackdown. Hey, to each their own. I mean, to each their own. One of the things I wanted to take away from this SmackDown was the fact that I guess they've been doing a pretty good job in the promotion for this Royal Rumble coming up. But this episode of SmackDown is just one that, if you were watching to get hyped up for the Royal Rumble, it didn't really do that for you. Right? There are some teases of future stuff like past the Rumble, like the tag team championships between Tama Tonga and Jacob Fatu against potentially DIY in the future. Damian Priest and his role in SmackDown going forward. There's a lot of good stuff in it, right? But I guess the promotion that they've been doing so far is enough, because very excited. A lot of people are into this Royal Rumble because you have a lot of people: John Cena, Seth Rollins, CM Punk, Drew McIntyre, Sami Zayn, Jacob Fatu, Penta, LA Knight, Damian Priest. A lot of star power. That's not even counting if The Rock is potentially coming back. So who knows? Like I said, they've done enough. I thought it was very odd and strange that they did not have Cody on tonight's show. Very odd and strange. He more than likely came out during a dark match segment, but it's just very odd to me. But nonetheless, here we are. Like, Royal Rumble is tomorrow. For me, who I think is going to win both the men and the women's. I believe women's, it's a tie between Io Sky and or I haven't noticed that. I could be wrong, but because sometimes there are things that I just overlook because I haven't seen Charlotte in so long. So it could be something that you notice that just I don't notice, because that happens to me. Like, sometimes I don't notice something, but other people do. So, like, not to say no or anything like that, but it could very much so be true, but I just don't notice it. You feel me? Like, I haven't seen Charlotte in a good while. But I do remember my sister telling me that she had what's it called? Like, she left to do, like, some surgery because, like, and I was like, that does make sense, because, like, if you look at one of her recent shirts, she does have her face covered up, so it could be something like that. But yeah, with everything that's in the Royal Rumble coming up, it's going to be a good one. Women, I predict Io Sky or Bianca Belair. For the men, I have a strong feeling, like, I want it to be John Cena. I really want it to be John Cena. I hope it's John Cena, but I do have a strong feeling it could be CM Punk. And nothing against Punk. Like, he's alright. Like, I gained a lot of respect for CM Punk after that whole debacle with The Rock, and he tried to take over over Cody's spot. I was like, that's a real villain in wrestling. But yeah, so it's either going to be Punk or it's going to be John Cena. But with that, oh, maybe I didn't think it's very possible. It's very much so, but you're probably right in that regard. I just don't like look at Charlotte a lot. But with that, we are officially done with this stream. Thank you guys so much for joining me, for commenting. I hope you guys have a good night. No stream for the Royal Rumble. I'm gonna be with family, gonna be watching. Yeah, I think the women's is a lot more of a mystery. I think the women's is a lot more of a mystery. Who could potentially win? I like those two, but for the women, there are a lot of mystery spots. There's a lot of mystery spots. And same with the men. I don't think there's any mystery spot that's going to potentially win. But there's a lot of spots left. So we're just going to have to wait and see. But yeah, like I said, thank you guys so much for joining this stream. If you did, for commenting, for liking all this stuff. We're going to keep on going. Keep a lookout on the channel. I will be streaming for Dynamite, AW Dynamite. I might continue to do these Smackdown streams, or potentially other review streams. But we're just playing this as it goes along. Right? This is like the third stream that we've done. So it's still very brand new and figuring stuff out. But yeah, so have a good Royal Rumble. Have a good Royal Rumble. And I'll see you guys as soon as I can. Hope you guys have a good night and stay safe. I'll see you after the Rumble.